Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to take a look back to my early dealer catalogues for vintage paperbacks right back to the mid-1990s. Now this was a very, very different time to be buying paperbacks than it is today, and times have very much changed, but I think these old catalogues are absolutely fascinating, and that's exactly why I've kept hold of them, and that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay, so we start off with this one here from January 1996. Now, this was from a chap called Brian Kesterton, and I met Brian twice at Penguin shows in the 90s, the late 90s and early 2000s, and he was a real gent, very encouraging and very knowledgeable towards new collectors, which I was back then, you know. So I think I probably came across him through the Penguin Collectors Society, possibly. He had an advert or someone mentioned in there about his catalogues, but I didn't really know him beyond that until I'd sort of joined the society. Sadly, Brian is no longer with us, but he was such a nice chap and always very encouraging. So let's just have a little look at some of the stuff that he had for sale here. I mean, he would always put something rare that he had that month on the front. So this was a Forces book club for Quinnies, and I think what he would used to do would be rare books would have like a little asterisk next to them, so that you could only order like one or two of those per customer per catalogue. Doesn't seem to be in practice in this particular one, but it was a pretty comprehensive list. So listing, yeah, the first 1,000 fairly comprehensively. And I've just ticked and marked a few books that I was going to go for. Yeah, so we had that Forces Book Club title was only £12.50. The Prisoner of War Books of Service Society one, Fontorama, that was £7.50. Couple of service editions, an Egyptian edition there for £4. And of course, some of these prices haven't really changed in all these years, you know. They've still sort of stayed around the same sort of price. Some very early Penguin Collectors Society publications there. And usually what would happen is Brian, sadly, a collector would die, and their collection would end up in Brian's hands, you know, and that happened time and time again. This is, the very next one onwards. So we won't obviously go through every single one, but I just wanted to show you what we actually had here. Now, one of the catalogues, I always remember it was really good. He bought a huge catalogue, a huge collection from an ex-Penguin employee, and I managed to get quite a bit out of that one myself. I was fairly lucky. What you'd have to do is phone Brian in the morning and get in quick, basically, you know. Looks like I've been going through here, scrubbing off the ones that I've got and which ones I haven't. Yeah, and he would always have a little bit, and he'd have a little bit about around and about. If he'd come across other bookshops which had good Penguin selections, Brian would basically give them a bit of free advertising, which was fantastic, really. Another one of my favourite specials there, Signalling and Matt Reading for the Home Guard. Yeah, you do this little round and about thing, which is pretty cool. 20% discount on completed orders of 10 or more books. And there we are, there's an example. So 6 there. He's got the Murder on the Links. It was the first thus with number 6. That's got a little asterisk next to it. So it's The Thin Man, which is a VG copy in repaired dust wrapper for £22.50. And if they had an asterisk, you could only order sort of 3 per catalogue, basically. And I think that was a really, really fair way of doing it, in all honesty, because there's some of my orders, because that way everyone got a few rare ones each order. And I think that's something which perhaps dealers should maybe come up with a similar sort of plan this time round. So everyone gets a few rarities and no one gets nothing. Or if your name gets picked out of the hat at the last minute, then you don't end up with anything, which is a real disappointment. Yeah. A couple of catalogues, they were literally definitive, and they had every single Penguin, and that was all absolutely fantastic. to see. But yeah, these Brian Kesterton catalogues, they really were something, and it was the sort of thing that I would always pore over when they would drop through my letterbox. Yeah, here, this is the catalogue. Look, a high proportion of these books came from the library of the late Mr. H.A.W. Arnold and are much better than average condition. I've got some of these. Mr. Arnold often wrote his name and date of the purchase inside the front cover. He wrote with a soft pencil, but I would suggest you do not erase the inscriptions for the following reason. Mr. Arnold was working with Alan Lane at the Bodley Head in the months immediately prior to the introduction of Penguins in 1935. He worked on the feasibility of the paperback project and perhaps influenced Alan Lane to proceed. His inscription is therefore an interesting one in connection with Penguin history. I also heard that he actually ran the Penguin warehouse for quite a long time as well. So this is an almost definitive list for when this was printed in 1997 of an almost complete collection, and they are fantastic. There's Biggles Flies again. That was £48.50. Those were the days, eh? And I think what happened was there was someone else at the auction, because basically H. Arnold's collection went up for auction, and Brian Kesterton was there, and there was another either Penguin dealer or collector there who wanted them, and he said, look, let's do a deal. If you let me take out some of the key crime ones, I'll let you buy the majority. I'll let you buy this lot, and I'll just give you a set amount for these key books. And that's what they did, and they ended up, Brian and this other chap, getting them at a reasonable price. That's the story I was told many years ago, but I'm glad I have got some of those, and they are absolutely mint. He's dead right. But yeah, Brian would have all sorts of interesting bits and pieces, bits of ephemera, some stuff I'd never seen before, and I think he sort of let it go a bit too cheap. But virtually from every single catalogue, I'd be able to pick some stuff up, but he had lots and lots of stuff that on hindsight I wish I picked up on reflection, but that's hindsight for you, But yeah, certainly I got a lot of specials from him, and all sorts, really, absolutely all sorts. Yeah, great details. Let's just flip through the rest of these. So I got them right up to when Brian passed away. There's another Forces Book Club one. There's one I haven't got. So I wonder what price he had on what happened in history. Might be near the back here. Don't think I've ever seen another copy of that one to sell. Here we are. What happened in history? £16.50. And a short history of English literature, £15.50. There you go. So some could say times have very much changed. So yeah, January, and this was the last one I ever had of him, summer 2000, which he had that show card there, which was designed, quite large, designed to go into a bookshop window, and I think he had like 20 quid on it or something ridiculous. I remember trying to get it, but didn't. Let's see if I can find it. Ephemera. Look, early advertising card, 10 inches by 8 with a red background. £10 for that original one from like 1935, a tenner. The sort of thing that would probably go for a couple of hundred minimum. Incredible, eh? So, Brian Kesterton, what a guy he was. Now, the next person, thankfully, is still around. He's my friend Joe. Joe is a publisher by trade nowadays, and he's on Instagram most famously as under the moniker Design for Today. But Joe himself has a fantastic, absolutely outstanding early Penguin collection, and he also did catalogues similar to sort of Brian's. And once again, I think Joe was a bit more on the money. He bought and sold Penguins, I guess, to advance his own collection, but also he ended up with lots and lots of duplicates. The thing I really remember about Joe's stock was it was always really high grade. I mean, absolutely outstanding stuff. And he offered stuff that no one else seemed to be able to get hold of, or you'd even see, Really nicely produced catalogues here. I think they were fantastic. And I ended up getting something off Joe virtually every catalogue that he did, in all honesty. So that one was November 97. What's this one here? 1995, this one. It was even earlier. There we are, a couple more Forces book clubs. Joe's got a great collection of them himself. These were later ones that he did. They were A4 size. He did in the 2000s. 70 years. Yeah. So yeah, Joe's catalogues were always good to look through. This is just something I photocopied from back in the day. It was the Book and Magazine Collector, and it was an article by Kevin Jackson on collecting penguins. Book and Magazine did do a much better one later on, published, written by Steve Hare, who was editor of the Penguin Collector at the time. Looks like this was all the penguin related articles. I had a book dealer friend who had a full run of Book and Magazine Collector, and I think I went through and just photocopied all the penguin related articles, which is, you know, fair enough. So the next thing we're going to look at are these. Now, these were fan produced bibliographies. Now, this first one on top here is by Richard Williams, and he had his own sort of publishing arm called the Dragon Bee Press. And Dragon Bee did bibliographies of all sorts of vintage paperback publishers. And I've got some penguin ones, I've got some Pam ones, and I've got a panther one. But I believe he did do some others as well. I'm particularly interested in knowing if anyone's got a Corgi Books one. But this is his penguin one, and I must have just got these. It's dated February 1991. And I seem to remember these Dragon Bee bibliographies were advertised through Book and Magazine Collector, and I got his list and I ended up ordering all the sort of the penguin related ones that I fancied. So not very good on the eye these days, and obviously nowadays you can find all this information online. The great Penguin First Editions website is the place I would head to for all things penguin related now. It's just the place to go with every penguin there and everyone illustrated. But back then in the 90s, these just weren't, that information wasn't around, so you had to use something like this. Here's the one that he did for the second 1,000 penguins. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you can still buy these, or even if Richard Williams is still, you know, trading, or even active, or even still alive. So maybe someone could leave a comment who's in the know on that one. Here's one which is a listing of all the penguin crime titles in order. So there's very much lots of collectors who just like the crime books. And that's the crime ones there. That was 91 as well. This is, I believe, the first ever one that he did for Pam books. There was 3 in the end. The last couple are like A format, and they're like little booklets, and they're brilliant. But this was one of the very, very early ones that he did. This was for Great Pans, Pan Giants, and Pan Majors. 85p this one was. Very, very early indeed. But these were the origins of the bibliographies. This one, once again, I got through the Penguin Collectors Society a long, long time ago. The Penguin First 1,000 Main Series Index, Margaret Palmer. Here we are. And this is, I think it's done by title. So it's literally the books by title. I remember thinking, well, that's a bit of an odd way to do it, and I never really ever used this as a reference, but it is what it is. I don't think it was very expensive. It was just something that I picked up at the time. This is the very first part of the Pan books. This is the Pan Numbered Only series. And it does say some of his other ones that he did were Collins White Circle, Hutchinson Group books, which I think would be fantastic. It includes the Pocket Library, Jared's, Leisure Library, John Lane Toucan. I'd love to see that one because I've got quite a bit of all of those. Short-lived series, once again, that'd be fantastic to see. Cherry Tree books, and then the Hodder and Stone Yellow Jackets. I don't know, but I would be quite interested to see some of that, because some of that information is just generally not actually out there online. But there, that was his guide, and the first ever guide to the Pan numbered books. This is a later printing of the same things. This is the second edition, and it's had some contributions from Ken Arnott, Edmund Bosworth, Eric Gadd, who I recognise, Dave Gregory, Steve Hare as well. This one says copyright Dave Gregory, so this is a different one to the Dragon Bee. This is something a little bit different with the illustrations as well. But this is what it used to be like if you were a bibliomaniac. That's what you had to work with. And this very last Dragonbee bibliography I've got here is the one that they did for Panther books, 1952 to 1960, including the Panther hardbacks and the Panther cubs. And there we are. So that's actually a really useful one. Lots of information in there, which is just tricky to find nowadays. So that's good stuff. Now we've got one more dealer to look at. So this is the earliest catalogues from Penguin specialist dealer Tim Graham. Now, Tim thankfully is still with us and he's very much active today, and still produces a catalogue maybe twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, and they're always outstanding. I mean, nowadays, this is the source to buy your Penguin books from. So if you're not already on Tim's mailing list, I do suggest you sort of drop him an email. So this is the very first one. I mean, I'm sure I had the very first one that he did, but this is number 2, so I don't know what happens to my copy of number 1. Christmas 2000, and they were all really nicely produced, very akin to the Brian Kesterton sort of format, but for the modern era, or fairly modern. But even this, when you think about it, was 23 years ago as we film this now. So we'll flick through these because I got quite a pile to do. There was number 3 and number 4, and you could say that almost every rare Penguin book ever printed has been through Tim's hands and would have been available in one or more of his catalogues at one time or another, you know. It's quite nice. It had some memorabilia in this one with the colour covers. Very nice, eh? That's good stuff, isn't it? The Puffin badges, Puffin Club badges. You can see what a comprehensive catalogue it was. But as I said, he doesn't do a physical catalogue anymore. It's all just sent as a massive PDF, like a 40-page PDF. There's the rare Q100, the complete publisher's catalogue. Quite scarce, that one. There's some of the Topolsky prints. There was 4 of those in total. Number 8 here in 2007. That was a proof of Lady Chatterley. I mean, how often do you see that? Very, very scarce, as you would imagine. And now this was a special. So Laurie Jagger was a prominent Penguin Collectors Society member. He was also a teacher as well, and his collection went to Tim, who disposed of all the rarities on behalf of the family, and there was some absolutely fantastic stuff. I did get a few bits from Laurie's collection. I can't remember exactly what, unfortunately. There's a couple of rarities, a Full House, one I managed to get recently. I don't know how much she was selling that one for. Let's have a look. I'm trying to remember the number, 300 and something, wasn't it? Was it 323? Yeah, 150. Yeah, so Tim says on for Full House, a very good copy of what I consider to be the scarcest of the main series, just a slightly faded spine, B+. So that copy there went for 150. What a bargain. That was 2008. And after that, I believe they just went, that's the last printed copies I've got, because after that, Tim just went to sending out PDFs of the catalogues. So if you want Tim's latest one, and you've not got his email address already, just drop me an email and I'll pass you his email address on so you can go onto his mailing list. This was looks like a one-off by, I think it might have been a chap called Ken Swift. Minority of Penguins, Catalogue 1. It's the only one I seem to have, and it looks quite early. Not exactly sure when this got published. No date on it, but yeah, a bit of an oddity, that one. Don't really remember much about getting anything from that person. And then this one, Papageno, which was a guy called Dondale Jones in Wales, and I remember having a few bits off Dondale Jones. He was always more expensive, I thought, than the other dealers around at the time, but I remember buying a lot of early Pam books off him at one point, and these are all his old catalogues, and he did have some really good stuff. He was a nice alternative to everyone else that was selling at the time. Yeah, look, complete run of the main series, first editions, numbers 1 to 500, right back to the start. And there we are. And he did a similar thing, that he would asterisk the really rare ones, and you'd only be able to order like 1 or 2 or 3 of those per catalogue. There they are. So that was Dondale Jones, who once again, I believe, has sadly passed away. But anyway, there you go. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that little whistle-stop tour through some vintage Penguin collectible catalogues. Now, I absolutely love those, and I think it is quite nostalgic to look back over them as historical curiosities to see what stuff used to sell for. So I hope you have enjoyed that one. If you have, do please give this video a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.